Welcome this morning to this very special conclave, which we start with the story of a young boy on a cricket pitch in Hyderabad, at the Hyderabad Public School, who dreamt of playing for India. His dream, though, takes him well beyond the boundary. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the great Indian story. The story of triumph, the story of Satya Vachan. Please welcome the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella.
Thank you all so much. It's fantastic to be here in New Delhi and in India. For me, coming back each time to India, I'm always struck by the energy, the optimism, the progress that this country makes, and the entrepreneurial spirit. And so I want to talk about digital technology this morning and what I see as its application across the length and breadth of the Indian landscape. In fact, there isn't a sector of our economy or walk of life that's not being touched in a foundational way with digital technology. So the opportunity for everyone in this room and beyond is immense in terms of taking that most malleable of resources, which is software and digital tech, and to be able to have this broad, deep impact in any walk of life. But of course, with this tremendous opportunity comes even tremendous responsibility. Because I think as we think about the prevalence of tech in our lives and in our society, the choices we make in, for example, how we empower people with technology is going to define, in some sense, our destinies. How do we ensure that the technology that we introduce is going to be inclusive? As we have algorithms, how do we ensure that these algorithms, intended or unintended, don't have bias? And then, of course, perhaps most importantly, how do you build trust? Not just by thinking about this as a cybersecurity technical challenge. Trust in business models. Trust that technology is going to help bring multiple constituents, governments, people, and institutions all together. It's this duality of tremendous opportunity and tremendous responsibility that collectively we all share that guides us at our company in terms of our mission. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And there are many key parts to it. These aren't just set of words for us. They're a living guide to how we make choices in what we do and more importantly, how we show up. We think about people, but more importantly, we think about institutions people build to even outlast them. We think about this globally. I'm definitely a product of that. But perhaps most importantly, it is not about celebrating any particular technology trend or paradigm shift for its own sake. It is about technology and its use in creating surplus, its use in creating a societal progress that each one of us aspires to. So it's the other's achievement on top of the technology we build that is the true reward for us. Now, the thing that is going to always remain constant for us is this sense of purpose and mission, and technology paradigms will come and go. Talking about these technology paradigms coming and going, we are in the midst of this amazing change. We've talked about this in the past as there's a cloud revolution and a mobile revolution. But there's something that is even deeper than that. We describe this as an intelligent edge and an intelligent cloud. There are three particular things that are happening right in front of our eyes. The first is no computer human experience is going to be bound to a single computing device. Everything that we are going to experience is going to span multiple devices and multiple senses. You're going to start perhaps with a speaker with voice. You're going to end up with a phone with a touch screen, and then you may have a whiteboard with ink. All of that is going to happen coincident with each other. And so you're going to transcend the input mechanisms, the output mechanisms. You're going to transcend the devices. That's really one trend that I think is going to be prevalent. So any application you build in any space, whether it's healthcare and retail, is going to exhibit that. Second, every one of these experiences is going to be infused with AI. In other words, you're going to reason over large amounts of data to create intelligence that's just going to be part and parcel of every experience that we create. And then, most importantly, in order to bring all of this richness, we need to, in some sense, will our way to more compute power. So that means there's going to be more efficient ways you're going to be able to bring computation to where data is being generated, and in particular in the edge. When you think about the self-driving car, the amount of data that's going to be generated in the car is going to be equivalent to what data centers once did. And so you need to be able to bring compute close to the car so that it can see the world, interpret the world, and drive it safely. That's the architectural paradigm. So you could say, well, that's a lot of technology. What does that mean if I'm in retail, I'm in automotive, I'm in healthcare? Of course, ultimately, each one of you in your business is building digital capability so that you can, first and foremost, empower your own people inside of your organization to work differently, to connect with customers differently, optimize every business process, and in fact, change the very nature of the product or service in the business model. That's what we mean by the broad strokes digital transformation. Now, in order to support these digital transformation outcomes in each of your organizations, we as a company are focused on 4 solutions or 4 solution areas. These are ingredients that act as agents of change as you drive the transformation inside of your company. And I want to talk about each one of these briefly. The first one is what we describe as the modern workplace. Now, a lot of us talk about customers, partners, products, except it all starts with our people. Right? It's a cliche to say the only asset we all have is our people. But it's important for us to recognize that in order for us to achieve any kind of success, we've got to start by investing in our people. And when we say investing in our people, what we want is unlock the creativity of the people inside of our organization so that they can do their very best work. And so when we look at what we are trying to get done as the next generation of tools we build, applications we build, it's all centered around unlocking that creativity, unlocking the teamwork. It's not about an organizational construct. It's not about having teams that are structures you put in place. It's the ad hoc support for teamwork. Because that's how value gets created in each of our organizations. It's the ability in an unbounded way for people across the organization to come together to drive change. And of course, as we empower our people, as teams come together, what becomes pretty important is security, the social complexity of all of the devices, all of the applications, all of the data. And so you need to have the sophistication in your management of all of this without the cost, without the complexity. So that's really at the core of what a modern workplace solution needs to enable. And it's fantastic to see this. In fact, one of the things that I grew up working in Microsoft in our server business for many, many years, and I would each time come to India, look at comparatively the penetration of our servers in India versus what was happening in the rest of the world. And it was, quite frankly, a very disappointing story because in some sense, the IT sophistication that was there in the country that was serving the world was not serving the Indian business because it was too expensive, the sophistication required was too much. But that's changing. Something like Office 365 now is unlocking the value of the most sophisticated server technology of a few years ago for even the smallest of businesses in this country to be globally competitive. And it's tremendous to see that. And in fact, when we think about Office 365, we don't think of this as just a move to the cloud of something that you did in your own data centers. In fact, it's the unlocking of the data, which is your core asset inside your organization, your people, their work artifacts, their schedules, their projects, who do they work with. All of that is now part and parcel of the value and the insight you have as you shape your culture and the way you go about your business. In fact, SBI is a great example of an organization that was a big user of technology, a lot of what we had done in the previous era. But they've now taken this giant leap to the cloud by taking, in fact, their own operations across multiple countries that they operated in, consolidating it, and most importantly, enabling and empowering their people to work differently. How they interface with their clients, how they work amongst their own various groups and departments. So that's a transformative journey that something like the move to the cloud happens. So it's not just about replacing what you did with something that is now delivered a little more efficiently. It is fundamentally unlocking a new way to work. Now, similar to what SBI is doing, we are seeing many organizations across the country using, especially in a country like India, where it's mobile first or mobile only in many cases, where the workflow interactions that you have within your own organization, with your customers, is happening on the mobile phone. We have launched a new app called Kaizala, which in fact was built in India with an understanding of the Indian market, in order to really help you keep the data that is so core to your competitiveness, not just leak it out to some social network, but to really be able to keep that within your organization, within your own security boundary, and yet give the convenience for your employees to be able to use simple messaging tools to get work done. And this is now being used by public sector organizations, by hospitals, and and retail organizations, and many more. And so we are very excited. This is one of the first times where we've studied the use of tools and technology in India to create what we think is going to be a very globally relevant product for us. Now, talking of innovation and talking of new ways to work, one of the most exciting things for me is to see how new medium, in particular what we describe as mixed reality, that is the coming together of what is virtual reality and augmented reality, because it's the ultimate computing experience in some sense. I feel everything that we have done, whether it is the graphical user interface or the touch screen, was all a build-up, so that in some sense you don't even have this notion of a computer that you go to. But right in front of your eyes is going to be a computing experience always that blends both the real world and the virtual world. And the question is, as we have introduced things like HoloLens and now our Windows mixed reality devices, what is stunning to me is to see the use case of these new medium and these new devices in pretty much every sector of the economy. And one of the institutions that we have worked with in India is LV Prasad, and what they're doing with mixed reality in terms of reimagining healthcare and the practice of healthcare is pretty tremendous to see. So I wanted to invite up on stage Dr. Anthony Vipindas to join me to give you a bit of a perspective on how LV Prasad's using some of these mixed reality technologies. Dr. Vipin, please come on in. So one of the things that I was pretty amazed when I first saw that was the variety of ways you're using mixed reality. You want to describe how the practice of medicine is changing because of these devices?
Yes. Good morning. Thank you for having us here, Satya. So as a surgeon, the way we learn anatomy is pretty much 2D. And over 5.5 years, there's so much of content that you have to assimilate before you actually sit in front of a patient to make decisions. So we've reimagined the entire eye anatomy, and on the Microsoft HoloLens, we've developed the first module of human eye anatomy. And the beauty of this technology is that you are in the experience. and the perspective that you get along with content that is both images and videos in terms of treatment options is phenomenal. And we're literally going back to med school, I would say.
It's pretty awesome because, in fact, even at Cleveland Clinic, the first-year anatomy class now is taught using HoloLens. I know one of the other things that you're also doing is not only are you using mixed reality, but you're incorporating AI in how you do diagnosis. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think that is driven by the first value at the organization is patient first. When you want to give the best to your patients, we've taken all of our data and are now looking at predictive analytics. So one of the examples I would like to share here is how we are using refractive error progression in children so that today I'm able to tell parents in the clinic that this is how your refractive error of your child will behave for the next couple of years, which is a powerful enabling tool for me to be able to deliver better care. And not just that, we're excited to open up many possibilities now in the field of cataract surgery outcomes, glaucoma, oculoplasty surgery outcomes. So it's a never-ending list, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Story.
Thank you. Thank you, Satya.
One of the other areas for us that's very exciting to see is LinkedIn. So we just talked a little bit about how you work differently, whether it's in 3D, mixed reality, or with regular 2D surfaces. But with LinkedIn, one of the key things that happens is it's not just about the work that's happening inside the org, but it connects with all of the work that is happening related to your industry outside. That power of the social network being there as you get your work done, keeping you informed about your own customers, is a massive unlock. And we're seeing some tremendous progress in India. We now have 45 million members in India. We have over 550 million connections that are formed. So this adds value to anyone working in your companies. It helps you attract talent, keep talent. It also helps public sector organizations. In fact, we're working with the government of Kerala to take the data that they have about the jobs of the future so that they can then take the taxpayer money around skilling and apply it more efficiently, because it creates that economic graph and feedback loop, which is, I think, very, very crucial for every public official looking at skilling and jobs to be able to drive their future. Now, the second solution area for us is business applications, because one thing that is secular in the changes that we are seeing is increasing digitization. That is, it's not as if you wake up tomorrow, you're going to have some more things that are digitized and the ability to track them. Now, it's not just that you have the ability to track, but you, for the first time, are creating these digital feedback loops, how you interact with your customers, how you do field service. Every one of the business processes inside of your company is going to have to be measured by your ability to monotonically improve them. In fact, I like to describe them, even internally at Microsoft. Do we have the metrics to measure progress? Not in years, not in even quarters, but every day. Did yesterday's work get improved today? That is only going to be based on your ability to create these systems of intelligence. And that's something that we're doing with our Dynamics product line and Dynamics 365. It's modular, it's modern, but most importantly, it allows you to customize this for your business processes and their continuous need for change. Because there's no such thing as a canonical business. There's no such thing as a canonical business in time. You have to continuously change. In fact, a great example of this is an organization called Cloud9 that manages a variety of children's hospitals and maternity care hospitals. And they are implementing this system of intelligence so that they have the 360-degree view, everything from patients, how the patients are being cared for, what is the after the hospital visit care, how are they able to not only digitize it, but with every treatment, they're able to improve the quality of the treatment that is delivered. Now, that brings me to the last area. See, one of the things that's exciting is it's no longer that you are just taking some technologies or taking some solutions for modern workplace or business applications from us or others and using it very effectively to change your own organization. You are building some of the foundational systems. And these foundational systems are going to be core to your insurance business, your banking business, your healthcare business, or retail operation. And so to me, that's what the Microsoft Cloud does. We're making tremendous progress. In fact, it's a couple of years ago is when we opened our data centers here. To see the rate of progress in the last 2 years, 70 of the 100 companies that are listed in the Bombay Stock Exchange use our cloud. 100 startups are adopting our Azure cloud each month. So it's tremendous to see this progress. But most importantly, what Azure enables you to do is to be able to bring to your own software development work, because there's no business out here that's not trying to build your own capability. And so it makes you more productive. It gives you the ability to keep your data where you need it to, and really drive intelligence into your applications and services. So we are, in some sense, democratizing access to this very rich infrastructure and AI capabilities. So instead of this AI being something that is you only admire in someone else, you want to bring this intelligence into every operation, every application, and every value creation opportunity you have. Because that's really what, whether it's the bots that you build, whether it's the cognitive APIs for speech or vision or natural language, we want to make it possible by really, in some sense, commoditizing them so that you can incorporate it into your application. So that's the revolution that we're seeing. And I mean, to give you a flavor for this, I wanted to actually invoke an example. This is something that we first started experimenting with in China. We built a social bot to be able to use all of the AI technology in our cloud and have it inform, in some sense, the possibilities of what AI can do. Can it have emotion? Can it sense the world? Can it hold a conversation? Because one of the most difficult AI tasks is a dialogue. Because every turn you have to interpret what just came before. And so we have over 100 million users in China of this, and with something like 30 billion conversations. So we decided, let's bring this to India. It turns out that taking something that grew in one country and bringing it to another country, which is conversational, is very, very different and very challenging. It's in fact one of the tougher AI problems. So we said, well, let's build an Indian bot, an Indian social bot, and we named it Roo. So I wanted to take a look at what Roo can do. So I want to invite up one of my colleagues, Puneet Agrawal, on stage. Puneet? All right, come on up.
Thank you, Satya. And hello, everyone. Allow me to introduce our social chatbot in India, which we call Roo. Roo was launched about 9 months back. It has already had more than 17 million conversations. Some of the users just love Roo. We see that there are more than 10 hours worth of sessions that people are doing. But I think most importantly, whether it be that you are just nervous about the exam or you're excited about a new job, Roo, just like a friend, is always there to chat with you. I think that's the promise. But today, let me walk you through the artistic side of Roo. So I have this elephant here. Let's see how Roo paints it. Roo created a beautiful color scheme, and there are many more examples. Behind the scenes, Roo looked at thousands and thousands of images and learned how to paint using a deep neural network. Isn't it exciting what technology can do? But you can also try this out. You just go try, do you paint on Roo, and you will see some samples, and then you can try this out. But why did Roo learn to paint is the question. So let me talk about the story of the handloom industry in India. It is perhaps one of the oldest industries and not so much touched by the technology advancements. In India, when you see like how the designs are being created for handloom, they're typically done by a person called a master weaver. So they paint these designs on a simple graph paper. And there are very few designs. They're passed on from generation to generation on a paper, actually, like on a handmade paper, right? So we want to democratize this process of designing. That is where Roo is making a difference, by creating these designs which viewers can then weave. So what we are essentially doing is that we are creating a system where instead of a select few people creating few designs, there are thousands and thousands of customizable designs which create thousands of viewing opportunities for viewers. That is what we're trying to do with Roo by democratizing the AI for handloom viewers. In a small village near Hyderabad, Shankar and his family took this design and started the weaving process. And we have like the first piece here that was created out of this process. This elephant scarf was created using a double ikat weaving style and was only possible because Roo learned and evolved and learned how to paint. Roo is not perfect, but it will continue to evolve and learn just like all of us. Thank you, and do talk to Roo on Skype and Facebook. Thank you.
You know, the possibilities of AI being applied to democratize perhaps what is most ancient of Indian industries, which is handlooms, and recognizing that the scarce commodity for actually creating surplus in the handloom industry's designs. That's, I think, the kinds of opportunities that we will have to grab onto, while being clear-eyed about the challenges of AI. Now, it's not just one industry. Every industry is being transformed because of this availability of computational power like never before, data like never before, but most importantly, your ability to reason over this data and create intelligence. And one of the other examples I just wanted to share is, again, the most oldest of our industries, which is agriculture. ECRISAT, which is a research organization that sort of does work in figuring out how to improve yield where you have the toughest of conditions, especially for small and marginal farmers. So what if you could have sensor data and a lot of other public data that's available change the curve on yield of a small farmer? And that's what they've done. And so now this is in fact going and being taken by the United Phosphorus Group and being productized so that more and more marginal farmers and small farmers, not only in India but the rest of the world, can benefit from machine intelligence and AI in how they in fact deal with both the problem of pests as well as the timing of sowing their seeds so that they can maximize the yield. Now, talking about organizations that have grown up in India doing world-class work. In the last multiple years that I've come here, I've been tremendously struck with the entrepreneurial class that is growing up here, that is creating these tremendous companies. And companies that are not only going to change the landscape here, but are going to change the landscape everywhere. And so today, it's sort of a real privilege of mine to have a chance to, in fact, introduce to you a new partner of ours who started his career at Microsoft Research. So I wanted to invite up on stage the CEO of Ola. Before that, I think we'll play the video, and then we'll have Bhavesh come up. Let's roll the video.
Loading your driving preferences. Good afternoon, Priya. The car temperature is set to your preference. Playing a new track from your favorite artist. You have a booking from Miss Johnson. Do you accept?
Sure, let's go.
Transferring controls to Miss Johnson. Have a nice day. Maintenance alert.
What's the issue?
Your car's low coolant level needs immediate attention. Here are the nearest service centers. Rerouting.
please help me welcome Bhavesh Agrawal, the CEO and founder of Ola Cabs.
Thank you, Satya.
It's so fantastic. It's so fantastic to see you that you've gone on to do a lot of great things after your Microsoft journey. One of the things that I know you have a very broad vision of what's happening in the auto industry and for Ola. You want to share a little bit of that?
Sure, definitely. Before that, I want to really say I'm inspired by your vision for Microsoft. Being an alum, it gives me so much excitement hearing you. And I worked at Microsoft for 2 years. Just small trivia, one of the projects that I worked at Microsoft, along with a few colleagues, was very similar to surge pricing. So you know where the inspiration for that came from. But anyways, jokes aside, our mission at Ola is to build mobility for 1 billion Indians. And India, the mobility world in India is very different from the West. Only 3% of Indians own cars today. That's 30 million cumulative cars in India for 1.3 billion people. And that's how many cars China sells in 16 months. So the paradigm for transport in India hasn't been built yet. So the opportunity that we are working towards and what we want to enable is to have India leapfrog the paradigm of car ownership directly into transport as a service. And we want to use technology to enable a more safer, more accessible, more convenient, and a more greener paradigm for transport in the country. Mobility hasn't changed much in the past 50 years. And it will change more in the next 5 years compared to the past 50 years. And at the core of mobility is the vehicle. When I was growing up 20 odd years ago, my father had a Maruti 800. And the cars of today are very similar to the Maruti 800. The looks have gotten a little nicer, a little more youth-centric, but the fundamental features inside the car are still the same. So, our vision towards making the cars smarter is what we launched 1 year ago with Ola Play. And I'm very excited today that Ola and Microsoft are partnering to take this to the next level.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about the sort of the partnership and what it may mean to your customers and also the world.
I believe there are strong synergies between Ola's mission and Microsoft's technologies. Having worked there, I can totally appreciate the benefits and the power of the Microsoft technologies. And I believe the two companies working together can accelerate the future of mobility, especially in India and beyond. And I'm excited. The 3 areas particularly I'm very excited about. One, we will together bring the productivity suite of Microsoft, the products and all the tools into the car. Imagine your Ola ride, you book a ride, you get into the back seat, your car is already synced with the calendar in your cloud, with the Outlook calendar, and you have a Skype call waiting for you as soon as you get inside the car. That's quite a seamless experience. The second area where I'm very excited to leverage Microsoft capabilities is AI and IoT and the cloud. Imagine if you enter the car and you talk to the car and say, just play my favorite song or play the A.R. Rahman song. It's very seamless, very convenient. We can also leverage AI in ways like if you are driving the car and you're drowsy, the car can automatically detect the fact that you're drowsy and stop the car itself. There are ways in which we can really make the future of mobility much more safer and much more convenient. And the final area I'm very excited about on our partnership is going to market together from a global perspective. We want to take this technology we've built in India to every global OEM and every car in the world.
Now, thank you so much, Bhavesh. Thank you for the partnership. Final thoughts on what most excites you as an entrepreneur in India driving some of this technological change?
The worlds of technology and transportation are merging and converging very, very quickly. In some ways, what's happening in the transportation industry now is what happened in the communications industry about 2 decades ago. Telecom companies came up, smartphones came up, social networks came up and completely revolutionized how we communicated with each other. And the next 10 years is going to be similar for transportation. And we as an Indian company, we believe that our nation has the ability and the opportunity to really lead in building this future paradigm of mobility and transport. And that's what really excites me. And that's what I believe our partnership will accelerate.
Tremendous. Thank you so much for the partnership. I'm sad that you left Microsoft, but I'm glad you're working with us now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, everything that you saw, whether it is the technologies or what organizations from LV Prasad to Ola are doing with technology, just shows what is possible today with the right application of technology. We've made tremendous amount of progress. We talked a lot about AI. We talked a lot about mixed reality. There was this Arthur C. Clarke quote that was said in the very beginning. These are magical technologies. But yet, I think it's important for us to have some perspective. Because in spite of all of this progress, the real state of our computational prowess is such that we still cannot solve some of the hardest challenges that we as a society face. So for example, we still cannot model the enzyme that is involved in food production. It's going to be key if you're going to ever solve our food production needs. We can't, for example, design that catalyst that can absorb carbon from the atmosphere. We can't design that lossless transmission, the superconducting material that will allow us for doing lossless transmission. In fact, we were talking yesterday even about some of the EV things with Bhavesh, and I was thinking, wow, the challenge of being able to sort of really not only have the electrical power capability, but the distribution. These, by the way, are all computational problems. These are computational problems that today can't be solved in polynomial time. So if you try to solve them, you'll take all the time from the Big Bang to now. So obviously we don't have that kind of time. So the question is, what's next? And this is what's inspired us. In fact, for the last 10 years, we've been working. Just like AI, it was Bill in 1995 when he formed Microsoft Research that Bhavesh worked on and said speech is going to be big one day. And it's 2017, we're talking about speech first or voice first interfaces. So this long-term approach is not new to us, and it's something that we've always taken. And that's the same thing that we're doing with quantum. So we're bringing in some world-class mathematicians, physicists, and computer scientists, and bringing them together with this very novel approach. There is this particular mathematical property. Not being a great student growing up, I had to sort of go to a Fields Medal winner who works at Microsoft today and say, teach me a little bit about the math here. And he sort of talked about this thing called the topological matter, which is so key to essentially being able to stabilize qubits, because that's what's required. Now, it turns out that you not only do have to have the theory of math, you've got to instantiate it in physics. And so we have some world-class physicists who are trying to figure out what are those particles in quantum mechanics that can in fact instantiate this topological matter. And we are very, very close to achieving that. Of course, when you have lots of qubits that are stabilized, everything that we ever learned in computer science in terms of how you program changes. Because the von Neumann machine is no longer valid. You now need to start programming using quantum. And so we're building a complete different stack. And this, in some sense, goes back even to the very origin of our company. This is who we are, which is we always create tools so that others can create more technology. We built the basic interpreter for the Altair in 1975, and today we are building a new quantum language, a quantum simulator in Azure, so that people can start programming these quantum algorithms to solve the most pressing problems, whether it's in food production or energy distribution. And to just give you what is quantum and how does quantum do computation, if you try to solve a problem, take the classic corn maze problem, using a classical computer, you'll get started, you'll hit an obstacle, you'll retrace, trace again, retrace, trace again. So that's why it takes, it's brute force essentially, to solve it, but it'll take a lot of time. Whereas the quantum computer is this ultimate parallel computer. And you literally are going to take all the paths available simultaneously. That's the speed up that we require in order to take and tackle some of the hardest challenges. And to me, that's the next frontier. The next frontier, in order to keep creating more surplus, more economic benefit for more people in our societies, technology and technological progress is going to be something that we will have to really have high ambition on. I always think about how technology can allow us to imagine the improbable and solve the impossible. And that's what I wanted to end with by saying that our mission is to empower every Indian citizen, every Indian person, and every Indian organization to be able to really tackle these hard challenges and really create economic benefit and societal benefit. Thank you all so very, very much for your time this morning. Thank you.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Just a couple of quick questions because we're running out of time. The word that I've often wanted to ask you about, because reading your book, It comes 53 times, as my researcher told me, empathy. The word empathy, while we look at a new digital word, how do you code empathy into people? Is that something that you can't have artificial intelligence or quantum computing or mixed reality bring in empathy, a word that you've made part of the culture of your company. So tell us a bit more about empathy.
It's a great sort of observation, because the way I think about it is empathy is not something that is separate from innovation for me. In other words, when I look at what Microsoft's core business is, we're in the business of meeting unmet, unarticulated needs of customers. There's only one way we can do that, which is to have a deep sense of empathy for what is happening around us. In some sense, that is the core to innovation. Now, the challenge, of course, is you can't go to work and say, let me turn on the empathy button. It's your life's experience. I didn't have any innate empathy that I was born with. It's life's experiences that teaches us. And if we can harness that, even at work, in fact, that's why I feel that it's very hard in today's modern workplace to say, well, let me behave differently at home and let me behave differently at work. You need to be able to figure out how to harmonize your life so that, one, it's simpler for you, and more importantly, you're more effective both at home and at work. And that's where it comes from. And I feel that it's core. It's not something that is sort of a separate from what our core business is.
And you ended your presentation by using the word empowering India. I'm just wondering, India 2040, can you give a vision to this audience as you see it? Where will we be? And forget 2020. Forget Kalam. This is Satya Nadella saying, where is India 2040?
That's look, here's how I'm a big believer. And as a technologist, the one thing that I try to shy away from is doing these predictions, because always you'll get them wrong. The specifics are going to be always out. In some sense, it's just very hard to sort of look at the progress. But the one thing that I do believe in, the choices that people in this room make in 2017 are in fact going to define what's going to happen in 2040. Because life is path dependent. Societies are path dependent. People talk about AI. We have a choice in front of us. AI can either empower us, AI can be inclusive, depending on the choices we make as designers of AI versus abdicating the responsibility for new technology. So that's at least what my belief would be.
So you're saying the future is uncertain, but it depends on the choices that India makes today.
Absolutely.
Let me end by trying to humanize Satya Nadella, the boy from Hyderabad public school who had this dream of playing cricket and ended up being the CEO of Microsoft. So if I were to ask you today, cricket or tech talk, what is it that you prefer?
One of the most amazing experiences as part of this book tour was to go to the Lords and interview with ESPN Cricinfo and talk about technology. So it harmonized my entire life for me. I went to the sort of the headquarters of cricket and talked about the two things that I'm most passionate about.
I was just wondering, the day will come when robots replace cricketers. That's not going to happen, hopefully. But if I were to also ask you, Hyderabad or Redmond, because this is the great Indian story, what really is, where is Satya Nadella's heart, in Hyderabad or Redmond?
I mean, I would say I grew up in the Deccan Plateau, and now I live in the Sammamish Plateau. And both of them are very much part of my life. And as I always say, I'm a product of two amazing American things: American technology reaching me where I was growing up, and the American immigration policy that allowed me to live my life. And I will always be thankful for that.
Running or pumping iron?
Running.
ML Jaisimha or Sachin Tendulkar?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. But, look, I'm a Hyderabadi romantic at heart, and so ML Jaisimha.
Your favorite Indian? Do you have a favorite Indian, someone who's inspired you all these years?
Gandhi. There's no question. His life, his message, not only as an Indian, but as a global citizen, I think everything that he represented is so current.
The next big thing in tech?
I think the three things that I think about is really mixed reality, AI, and now it's a little out there with quantum.
Is there a buzzy innovation app that is destined for failure, has a finite shelf life that you see, which is there amongst us today?
Anytime you think that this is it, this is the final technology that you ever need, it has got finite shelf life.
Your only weakness?
I start lots of books, but I finish a few of them.
And my final question, your wish for India and the world in 2018?
I hope that we not only celebrate the amazing opportunity we have to create technology or use technology, but perhaps the currency of our times is going to be the surplus that gets created in and around us. How is it equitably being distributed? Because that's what creates stability in democracies like India or in the United States. That's what creates overall global prosperity in the long run. So I hope that we can crack the new models of growth that allow us to make progress.
And you believe technology can do that? Technology can create a more equitable world, because you write about it in your book, and there is the worry in this country, will artificial intelligence mean reduction in jobs, or will it actually enhance the human factor? You sound optimistic, but there are a lot of people out there who are listening to you who will worry about artificial intelligence. What impact will it have? Can you give them a message of hope?
I'm a great believer that technology is a tool. We as humans will have to make decisions. We as societies, governments, policymakers will have to make decisions on how do you use this technology to create the surplus. That's what's going to define whether we achieve equitable growth or not.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you
Satya
very much.
Nadella. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.